Hi, Wally. So there's Wally has another play, The Designated Mourner, that was filmed and is screening here next week, and there's a line in it where a character says, "It's a miracle your father was allowed to exist." Speaking of a poet and a subversive poet in a politically authoritarian regime, it's a miracle that this film is allowed to exist. Even as, though its fate has been rocky, it's a miracle. I just wanted, I guess, to start by talking about how it came to be. It started as a play, and that's a bad question. You're doing a horrible job because I love it. The typewriter. Let's talk about the typewriter. Can we talk about the typewriter?
Well,
that's not a question.
No, I mean, typewriter, I think, how did it happen? We asked Laurie Anderson if she would write us some music.
That music existed actually, but she was very kind to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, the typewriter, excuse us, I mean, I haven't seen the movie since, I guess, 2000 and, it said 2006. That 2006 incorporated a period when the movie was physically stolen and recut by somebody, and we followed Tom and I went to Los Angeles and followed the print and recut it.
What?
Again. That was where the 2006 came in. But yeah, I haven't seen it basically since then, and we didn't see it then because we were just in a little editing room. I suppose I'd say I've never seen this cut. And I'm just in such shock about it. I mean, it's yeah, so I can hardly speak.
I know that you've written about, this premiered at Sundance in 2004, before being recut, and you've written about how that screening went. Not to dwell on horrible memories.
I mean, the movie disappeared after that, and you're the first people ever to see it on a screen in New York City. It was shown at Sundance, and in a very, sort of, they were paying us a lot of respect. They put us in the big screening room.
I sat with Robert Redford, but I didn't see him after it.
He was on the slopes.
He was, yes, I mean, he wasn't, I don't know when he left. But for sure we didn't see him afterwards or ever after. I think there was a poster at Sundance, am I wrong, that showed Matthew and Julianne, and there was as I remember, there was a poster, and it was quite a cheerful poster, and it looked like it would be a romantic comedy. And the screening was filled, and Bob Balaban was with us, and there was a moderator who brought us out onto the stage. How do you remember this?
I just remember this mixture. We had this yeast extract spread you put on toast in the morning in England. I'm Irish, but I live in London, and it's known in England as a Marmite film. Not that many people have seen it, but you either love this film or you really hate it, and that's what Sundance was like. It sort of split the audience rather raucously. It was quite a.
And certainly, the moderator said he had no questions or any thoughts.
And nor do we.
But he asked, does anyone have any questions? And Tom and Bob Alban and I were standing there, and a manly man stood up in the audience. Obviously, it seemed to me surrounded by people who thought he was great, and he thought he was great. And he stood up and he said, "Yeah, I have a question. What was the point of that?" And unfortunately, there was a pretty big round of applause.
But then it turned a bit, Wally. Do you remember?
Yes.
Then the other side of it, like you maybe, were there as well. So it turned into a kind of
And
competition.
we showed it a couple of more times at Sundance in smaller venues, and maybe some of the people who went to the second and third screening had heard from some of the people who liked it. I mean, I myself had such a strange reaction today that because it's, I've never quite experienced this, although it's a sentence that one reads every day. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At certain moments, I literally didn't. I mean, I would say I had no idea of the I had no idea of the accomplishment of Tom, Julianne, or Matthew before today. There was too much going on or something.
Well, I mean, can we talk a little bit about the process of adaptation? I know that you shared the screenplay credit, and Tom, you are mostly working as a theater director, and you met working on one of your plays, Wally. How did you? I mean, the script is full of long, visionary sort of passages that people are obviously. There's no garden on stage. The garden is described. There's no dog. The dog is described. How did you transpose that into images?
I suppose it was, as it becomes more and more, I won't use the awful S word, but complex, let's say. Mostly when we were working together, obviously it was Wally's work, so he was leading on all of that, but somehow we had to get it into a structure that was filmable, and the choices, we had to work out the choices we'd make, like do we show the dog, and I can already re-edit that whole scene, but obviously we all do that.
Don't touch it.
And many other things actually, and it was, I mean, like the opening of the film, obviously that's not in the play, there's a conversation about the typewriter, but that idea came to me because it's a reasonably decent way of opening a film with a typewriter pouring out of the sky, as it were, out of the window. So that's a good example exactly of how to visualize something that at least has the right sort of dynamism and impact, filmically speaking,
I mean, it's amazing. In the play, it's very hard to get the audience to see and think about that typewriter, which is so central to the whole thing. I mean, imagine walking back into your house and discovering that your wife has done this act of rage, but not talking about it. I mean, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about that she did that, right?
Right.
So and so she. I mean, I don't know if we even want to take the conversation this way, but for me, it's very clear that she feels a great deal of guilt about that. I mean, am I crazy?
Well, she at the end, when he says he's bought a new typewriter, it clearly is, well, that's when she stops her plan to leave him.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is so, and I mean, the dialogue is not naturalistic. That is a leap even in a play, and in a film it's crazy to do that. And yet I don't know, somehow, because, well, the beginning of the film is not heavy on dialogue, and it's, and pardon me for, I mean, it's we haven't all been, the three of us have not been talking about the film because Tom and I haven't seen it. So I'm saying things sort of off the top of my head that it is an amazing portrait of unemployed people in the summertime in New York City.
Speaking a strange language.
I mean, the first third of the film is 100% Tom Cairns, and it's also, I mean, Julianne is astounding, and you know,
I think it's one of her best performances ever that she's ever given.
I feel that too.
Yeah, just her body, the way that her body, that there's that amazing thing where he leaves and she turns to the camera and she's like, she's doing like a tiger stance. She's like, what do you want? She's amazing.
But it somehow it somehow leads into, by the end, because of the way it begins, the first third of it, and then the sort of part where she's with the dog, somehow the dialogue becomes almost acceptable by the second half of the movie.
Almost accepted.
I mean, it seems, yeah, I mean,
I think the party helps that as well, Wally, because the party's like its own little film within a film almost. And the fragmentary nature of listening to inane conversations, which so many people try to get to cut, because you don't normally do that. You normally, you know, stick on a murmuring track for background noise or something, and the kind of sort of, well, inanity of the things they were saying to each other. It built into a sort of mosaic that I think anyway slightly supports how they're talking on top of that. So it's all slightly abstracted or some word
Yes,
like
I
that.
mean, the people at the party are talking the way that guy writes, basically, me. I mean, the people at the party are, even though you only hear fragments, their way of speaking does somehow lead you toward Marie and Bruce's
I think so,
speaking.
yeah.
They're all antagonizing each other, everyone at the party.
And Julianne's portrait of nervousness or tension is absolutely amazing. And these two actors are so masterful. I mean, Matthew makes the most extremely unnaturalistic lines seem very believable. It's astounding. Astounding what he does.
He has a real, like there's like a rage, I feel like underneath the demeanor there's a really amazing core of anger that he will never, you sense that he'll never ever express it out loud. And he'll get so close at the party where he says, you're sort of a cunt to me, darling, are you crazy? But it's like, it's very, very amazing portrayal. Once again, I'm tongue-tied. I guess that the play, when you look at the play, if you go right to the very middle, the very dead center of the play is this Bettina speech at the party. The woman who sits next to Julianne and says this speech about how you don't feel what you actually do feel. Like the issue is that you don't feel what you actually do feel. You feel something else or what you're supposed to feel. And I do feel like that is the kind of, it unlocks everything that Marie and Bruce are doing.
They're feeling a lot, and
Yeah.
they're talking a lot, but what they say is not exactly what they feel, almost ever.
Yeah.
And yet, somehow, after a point, I mean, it's not for me to say, or for Tom or me to say, but, well, I'll just say it. To me, they weirdly become real as the thing goes on, and become people somehow, even though what they're saying is very odd, and as you say, it doesn't express exactly what they're feeling, but it's there's a lot of emotion between them. I can't explain.
I think it's because the language is so complicated and not how we speak, and yet somehow everything they do and how they behave and how they do speak, once you get the kind of essence of what they're doing and saying all the time, is, I think that's where it becomes, and I felt that today, which I never felt when I was making it, because it was just coming at me, so I didn't have time to really, I just had to hope this would happen. But I did feel, if I may say, that it did permeate a set of emotions that we all have all the time. I mean, it was a slightly more mysterious way of doing it underneath the more complex language, but somehow it added up by the end to being emotionally very accessible But I don't know if other people might have thought that, but I felt that myself today, having seen it. I sort of, it all added up into something I completely recognized. I mean, spiritually and emotionally. I don't mean two people arguing, obviously.
And there, the portrayal of the interpenetration of ordinary events and fantasy in people's minds, I thought was handled by Tom in an amazingly unusual way. I mean, we do go through our lives eating breakfast and walking down the street, and while we're doing those things, there are all kinds of images and fantasies in our minds, and movies make different attempts at showing that. And this was a terrific one, particularly, I mean, the beginning in the apartment, all the scenes of the walls and the different bits of furniture and the music, and at the same time, I don't know, I found it very believable. But it's all tied together by the great acting of the principals, and the smaller characters are amazing.
So there's that's a very star-studded party. We have Julie Haggerty is incredible as the, I don't know, she's just said Kenneth Lonergan is in it, who apparently was writing Margaret while he was in the holding.
Yeah, there were lots, all those incredible people who came along to help us out, and, you know, the party people, and some others as well, but mostly the party people. They were corralled into some space for 4 days to be on call all day for 4 days, and they were bored to tears, and there's a lot of interesting, funny people. And just as a funny story to tell you, they start to invent games, and they played lots of games together. And Wally's Reverend Deborah was telling me last night that they got a cookbook down that was in the place, and it talked about making sculptures out of spam, that meat thing. And Julie Haggerty one day brought lots of spam in and was making terrible. I mean, they were feral by the end. They were just they were like all locked up in this holding area. And I gather there are many stories about what went on there. And suddenly then they'd get the call to be on set for 10 minutes or something.
And the group at in the sort of dream sequence, many great performance artists and others are in that scene. Jazz fans may recognize Blossom Dearie as the person holding the blue jewel. Many people who have passed on were in that amazing, I mean, it could have been an after-death scene, and it sort of is now.
Do we have time for one or two other questions?
Yeah, we have to.
We have a microphone if anyone would care to ask questions to Tom.
So what is the story of why we haven't ever seen this before, why it was never released?
Well, there were, as you saw, there were 2 names, I think, credited as producers, and I think the one who had the most, I mean, this is me talking, could be other people might, well, say it was so horrible that it could never be seen. And I think some people would tell you that. But the more direct fact is that of the 2 people who were the producers, the money was coming more from the guy who worked in a field I don't know what it is, penny stocks. And his company was indicted while we were filming. And the money dried up, and in a way, the film had to be finished in a hurry, and there was no way for it to be theatrically distributed, so it was sold, you know, directly to a video company, and then it got into this whole thing where there was, and I never wrote down what was exactly happening, but there was an attempt to make it, as I remember it, the producer who remained, the one who did not have to do with penny stocks, he said something like, well, I have a friend who is a hilarious, funny guy and can turn this into a hilarious comedy. Is that wrong? Isn't that basically what happened?
Stories that still haunt me.
I mean,
It is a hilarious comedy.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that he had a more conventional idea of a comedy in mind, and you know, I just remember calling Tom in London, as I remember it, and saying, we've got to go out there and stop this. We have to go to LA. And we went out there and we stayed in a hotel, and somehow we convinced the producer that it was not right to try to make it into a more conventional comedy, and that we could somehow the guy who was the assistant to the editor who was going to make it into the conventional comedy was willing to work with us to basically turn it back to what it was, but with the nice producer in the room, and we were convincing him of that this was better, and this was better, and this was better. Am I wrong about
No,
that?
you're completely right, and it was a great act of, I mean, I don't know how we did that. It was so carefully maneuvered over 2-3 weeks to slowly change that just a bit, and then that would affect something else. And basically we did a second edit. We brought it back to what you've seen today. But it had a very bumpy ride, the whole journey to get to this point.
I mean, yeah, I would like to have another chapter to the story, because it's, yeah.
Well, this is the only print that we could find, and it was in Tom's apartment. It's just been sitting in your apartment.
Sorry.
Screen one. We have to digitize it, or I mean, you can stream a low resolution version, but
I was sent a print to check out lots of things finally, and they just never asked for it back, so I put it in my cupboard. and when the Metrograph I don't know if we should be telling all these stories, but here we go. When Metrograph were looking for a copy and, you know, contacting all sorts of people and failing, well, he said, well, I said, well, to be honest, I've got a copy, but I haven't looked at it for 20 years. I don't know what state it's in, and blah, blah, blah. And it was FedEx only a week ago over here, and it's all a sort of miracle today, for us anyway. It's very. It's why we're stammering and stuttering, and we're very kind of thrown by it in the most in a great way. You know, we're just so glad it exists, basically.
They know what's good for them. What program is it?
Congratulations on the film. It's really magnificent. I was wondering if you could talk about the visual effects. I think there's like really nice shimmery quality to their fantasy.
Could someone just say that? I didn't
The
hear.
visual effects and the sort of fantasy sequences.
Talk about it, yeah.
Making them, coming up with the idea.
I mean, that was hard because we shot this movie in 21 days. So you can imagine, we were just going from location to location, and then somewhere we had to find somebody who cared enough to help us out with. There was a fair amount of CGI in some sequences, and that went on and on actually for much longer than it was supposed to. But as it started to grow, like there's a scene which I was reminded of today. There's a scene where Bruce is out walking for the day, and he goes to that shipyard place where the boats are and things, and just looks at that girl sunning herself, and then moves on. To one side of that, there's a deer, a reindeer. Did you notice that reindeer?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I mean, it's rather charming this, but our producer, who we had finally cajoled into giving us it all back to have another go, as it were, he became obsessed with having a reindeer in the scene. And that's how odd it all was. It was just, it became more and more bizarre. And so we suddenly were back in the CGI, did about 10 other things at the same time, of course. But we got that reindeer in there, and you know, I couldn't live without it, but I was very glad of it, I must admit.
I was sure that I was like going to ask you, I was like, is that in the script? The stag in the back. The producer wanted a deer?
Yeah.
It
was great. It was great. I was very pleased about that. Bring on the deer.
We have about 5 more minutes. If there are other questions, let's take back.
Can you talk a little bit about how the piece of color? There's a lot of color throughout the film. It sort of begins in the apartment and then extends through the party.
Yeah.
Can you talk about those choices?
I mean, I that was another thing that sort of hit me like this today as well. I think it was the photographer William Eggleston, is that his name?
Yes.
Wonderful. Disgracefully can't quite remember his surname properly. And Patrick Cady, the DOP, who was a really young guy. It was a New York crew. It was all very, you know, the energy all came from all these young people doing a movie. It was very moving and sort of wonderful. And we looked a lot at his photographs and drew from them a bit. There wasn't very much color signaling in terms of emotion or anything like that. It was more about a look for the film that wasn't completely real, but still was pretty real. And then it did get more complex, obviously, at the party and stuff. It became more less realistic, you could say, I suppose.
It does a wonderful job.
Well, just the beginning was pink, and I had nothing to do with that side of it, but watching it today, the beginning was pink, and the party is green for sure, and am I right that it's less expressionistically colored at the end?
Right at the, yeah, from the restaurant on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does a very good, it really drives home how hot it is at the beginning in their apartment. And then she finds the cool park, the garden, and then it gets too cold. I mean, it really tells that story so well.
Thank
Is
you.
there one last question? Do you want to, oh, it's Tessa, hi.
Yeah, hi. So there's all this talk about like purging and like how she's sick.
Oh yeah.
And she
There's all this talk about like purging, how she's sick and really needs to throw up, and like the film really makes you feel this like physically uncomfortable. It kind of puts you in the character's shoes, you know, like eating while someone's talking about getting diarrhea. And it's kind of begging for this like moment of release of, you're just waiting, like one of them is going to throw up eventually, it has to happen. But instead kind of the opposite happens, where like the only real moment of purging the whole time is like a typewriter going out the window at the beginning. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk about like how you got the physical like effects. So yeah, how you made it so visceral and such.
I would also add, I wonder if Wally, you want to talk about nausea at all as a kind of a recurring motif.
Well, it's very upsetting to throw up.
Yeah.
And I guess it's, what can I say? Most of my plays do seem to, I wouldn't say center on that, but it does come up quite a bit. And I mean, I think that Julianne is extraordinary at enacting physical states. And I think in this movie, more than in anything else that she's done, really. And I think that then affects the way you look at the walls of the room and the colors. I think the visceral feeling of the film comes from Tom began as well, his beginnings are too complicated to describe, but he is an incredible set designer, and I don't know, it's a combination of Tom's colors and Julianne's acting that bring about that physical vividness that's very striking in the movie.
I also like that all of that nausea, or whatever you want to call it, you know, it's also for me, and he says it a few times, Bruce says it a few times, why is it every time we get into a thing, you feel sick? And that's actually a bit of a known thing in other areas. I'm not an expert in any of this, but you know, there's that thing of people when when they're over challenged, they slightly feel very tired and want to go to sleep almost. You know, your mind is so strongly disturbed that it begins to affect you physically, and that's not an original thing to say, but I've always seen it as a double-edged sword, this sickness thing, and I think possibly by the end it actually is for real, but sometimes it isn't. But that's just my take on it, you know.
I think that's all the time we have. Thank you all. Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Tom.